Here we got March 8, 2015, Edible Acres. We're at Edible Acres 2 here in Ithaca area. And I wanted to do a quick update and talk a little bit about a project I'm working on. I got this, what looks like just junky rotting log. This came out of my raft inoculation pile of Pohu oyster mushrooms. This was really productive for me last year. And so actually this is a really valuable chunk of rotting wood. It's ropey, loaded with mycelium, all the way to the end. This fruited heavily for me last year. And you can look for raft inoculation method in Paul Stamets's book, Mycelium Running. It's not too well documented a system, but basically I just went through and took this big tooth aspen. This was 2 springs ago now. I'm sorry, last spring, April in 2014. Took these aspen chunks, sliced them, gave them wounds here and there, packed spawn from field and forest, Pohu oyster spawn, and then put some burlap sacks on top, and now, almost a full year later, I've got this ropey, beautiful stuff. The reason I busted this out of the pile is I'm gonna take this and actually pass it through my chop saw in here and cut a ton of little cookies, half-inch thick to inch thick cookies, that I'm then going to take and put into 2 or 3 burlap sacks. I'm going to soak the burlap sacks, get them nice and wet, put these cookies all throughout, and then roll them up like a spawn burrito, a mushroom moisture burrito. Maybe put some fresh wood chips in there, some cardboard, some old cloth, etc. But that's a way to take an investment. So I bought 1 bag of this Pohu spawn last year. I know this log fruited that mushroom. I can still see a legacy of those mushrooms on there. So this is a great mycelial lens, a way to leap off of this log into a bunch of burlap sacks, 2 to 3 at first, and then in April I'm going to be doing a bunch of workshops on how to propagate your own mushrooms. Everyone's going to roll their own burrito, where they each get a fresh burlap sack, and by then I'll be able to slice up these first few sacks of burlap, which will be fully myceliated and ropey, and use them to roll the next burritos. So we can go from 2 or 3 burlap sacks into all of 50 of these, and people can take them home, grow them out for a little while in the shade or in a plastic bag, and then use those full bags to inoculate logs. So it's kind of this full circle. From spawn to log, from log to bag, from bag back to log, which will make spawn and fruit and etc. So here we are having our own kind of generation there. Likewise, I'm going to be making burrito spawn. So as a little side note, I've been making these little birdhouses. So that's another project for this spring with sheet metal roofing. Try to make birdhouses that'll last a while. But anyway, this is Stropharia. Probably not the best shot here, but again, this was a video we did last spring where we inoculated in a bathtub, and I can link to that video. In a Tupperware in the bathtub, we inoculated a bunch of wood chips, put it out in the garden, and now late winter, early spring, you can see outside it's just starting to thaw, but it's still definitely late winter here. But I scraped the snow away, got into the soil, and scraped up areas where I know Stropharia mushroom fruited last year in the fall. And here's some beautiful ropey rhizomorphs that smell like Stropharia. They look like it. They've got the ropey runneriness of it. And so some of the burlap sacks will get this material with cardboard and fresh wood chips. So 2 different flavors of mushroom burritos are going to get rolled today. Brought inside into the basement where it's cool but not freezing. It's a little bit more mellow and even. And in a month I should have some really powerful mycelial lenses of Pohu oyster and Stropharia rugosa annulata, basically from stuff that I did last year and for free. Great way to take a good known investment from a reputable source and then really ramp it up. So we'll do some updates as that goes along. Thanks for watching. So just in case people are interested, real quick, This is how I'm making my Pohu oyster cookies. You can see there's a cookie. That's all myceliation, right? This is, in a year, almost completely dissolved by the mushroom. So this was a living, healthy, big-tooth aspen last April, wounded on the surface in a bunch of spots, packed with sawdust, and a year later, just one massive explosion of hyphae and life of this Pohu oyster, just using a simple electric chainsaw. It's a great thing to buck up firewood and do rough construction, build garden beds, that kind of stuff, and it's great for processing these logs because I can do it in the garage. And I'm just slicing these cookies. By making lots of little slices, I get all this material. This is beautiful. This is sawdust spawn. Basically, I could buy this, or I could just generate this now. And I smell it. It smells exactly like the sawdust spawn that I bought before. Certainly not 100% guaranteed that this is going to be Pohu, but sure is quite likely that it's going to be. You can see the huge digested patch in there. So this should leap off into the burlap with just a reckless abandon. I mean, look at that, just loaded with it. So I could probably do 10 or 20 sacks right off the bat just from this one log. So I'm going to sweep up all this material and then pack it into a couple of these bags. I'm just going to keep slicing all the way through so I can spread this as far as I can. Real quick side note as well, folks might like this real simple design. This is made out of waste cuts of black locust that I got from a local lumber mill, almost 2-inch stock. You know, there's some live edge stuff here or there, but real basic design. It's basically a bucking block. It's spaced every 18 inches. It's reinforced here horizontally and on the other side, and then screwed in quite a number of spots. It's a nice thing. You can lay down long lengths and then buck your firewood. So I'll put sometimes 10 or 20 short lengths of logs. See the kind of firewood we go through, and then basically use the chainsaw to pass through and break it down. But it works for little stuff as well, just to keep it up off the ground. So that's how I'm making these cookies. The next step is basically to pack the bags or roll the burritos and then let them start mellowing. We'll check in later. And here we go. We got our burrito ingredients ready to go. Here's our flour tortilla wrapper in the form of a burlap sack. It's important if you're going to use burlap. I find burlap is a great substrate to grow out mushrooms. They love eating it up, but you can't get the synthetic junky stuff. It really should be ideally from organic coffee or fair trade or something where they have higher quality sacks. Some of these have like nylon threading in them, but by and large these are in great shape. Funny story, side story with this. Last year I traded, I got 1,250 of these burlap sacks in trade for inoculated shiitake mushroom logs. So yet again another feedback loop there. My inoculated logs gave me the burlap sacks so I could inoculate burlap sacks to inoculate logs. It's kind of funny how this stuff works. But these are great also for mulch around young trees. I put a slit in there and feed the bare root tree up through it, put some Stropharia spawn inside the bag, and it does a great job. But anyway, let's call this our flour wrapper, or our corn wrapper if you're burlap intolerant. We've got our sliced up cookies as our main filling. We've got the fluff and dust, like our shredded cheese analog. And I also have some charcoal from the wood stove. There's other videos of this as well. This is a nice high quality black locust charcoal that I made that I'll pulverize and feed that in there as well. It'll be a nice straight carbon source, not so much as a food source for the mushrooms, but as a place for them to occupy and inoculate in case it gets too dry or too wet, too whatever. They'll have some recesses, and then when this finally goes out into the world, there'll always be a little bit of charcoal available for the mushrooms to glom onto and hide out in to get through some rough times. But if you were in here, you'd notice what I'm noticing, which is it just reeks of fresh, beautiful mushroom smell, which bodes well for this process. I'm just going to open this up. These are dry right now, and I'll put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so cookies laid in there. Good handful of the sawdust. Crush up some charcoal, throw that in there. Roll the burrito up, and then I'm going to mist it down with water. I'm not trying to make them sodden and sopping wet, but I'll get it moist enough once it's rolled up, and then it'll just get wrapped in plastic and go somewhere warm. After a week or two, I'll take the plastic off and kind of just start poking at it, looking at it. Average house temperature I'd expect within about a month. When I unroll this, it should just be laden with ropey mycelium and ready as a lens to leap off into either a bunch more burlap sacks or directly onto wounded big-tooth aspen, willow, box elder, other looser grain woods. And then the Stropharia will get almost the exact same treatment. So it'll just go in, some extra. I've got some fresh wood chips way out on the end of the driveway. Road crew's been dropping off, and so I'll mix them with wood chips and some other debris, and they'll get rolled into burritos as well. So that's the whole process in a nutshell. I don't see any reason to show any more. You get the idea. It's really simple. But it's key that I'm starting with known stuff. I didn't just grab a log in the woods that might have had oyster mushrooms. I watched this particular one fruit. I watched Stropharia, particularly fruit from this area. So I'm putting in the effort for what feels like good reason. And we'll do another video once we maybe hop this lens onto the next step, or maybe we even see fruiting out of these burlap sacks. So low-tech, zero to near zero cost ways of kind of exploding out production. I feel like this is a system where I could lay raft inoculated piles all throughout woodland areas that I can't do normal full light production of food crops, and get actually orders of magnitude higher financial value for my farmland with this sort of stuff than if I was trying to grow potatoes or the like. So food for thought and food for food. Have fun. Hope this is helpful.